Welcome back, Truth Seeker. Monday, August 26th, 2019. The first story that caught my eye today is the one right in the middle of the screen. And you know what? I need to get my camera up so I can show you something ironic that happened today in light of this story. I also received a package in the mail today, and I want to put these two things together. So give me a moment where I load up the camera. Okay. Let's see. That's more like it. So let me see. Is that showing up? Can you see this book? This received in the mail today. Shout out to Matt in Minnesota. Appreciate it. But look at the name of the book. Eye to Eye. It's got George W. Bush with a hurricane and the Star of David right in the middle of the hurricane. And I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But let's just start here. Report: Trump floated idea of using nukes to stop hurricanes. And I've been pointing out for years now how when the hurricane season comes around, we keep seeing headlines that refer to these storms as nuclear and other headlines that use military terminology. Go back and search for the headlines about Maria, which devastated Puerto Rico. All sorts of news sources reported that that storm was targeted for Puerto Rico. Targeted nuclear storm. What people need to realize is that the United States of America had a atomic and nuclear weapons testing program which lasted for nearly 5 decades, where bombs were detonated high up in the atmosphere to see how they would impact weather. Weather warfare is a pretty old concept, actually. And also, they detonated them underground and thousands of times over. And when you think about that, we learn about all this radiation and fallout from nuclear weapons. Well, we live on a planet where they've been detonated many times. And they're particles that are supposed to last, not an infinite amount of time, but a very long time compared to humans. And they spread through the air, so they spread across the earth. But anyway, the point is, this has been researched for a long time. And then when the news media introduces this as a subject to the people of the world, they make it seem like it's this silly, crazy, absurd idea. And don't get me wrong, it is. But at the same time, the media is not saying, oh, and by the way, American people, your military has experimented with these types of things for many decades at your expense, at your very big taxpayer expense. And again, if you have not read my book, there's a chapter on weather warfare by the numbers, and I'm going to show you a recent example in the headline right now, and I'm going to give you a whole bunch more, sadly, when this hurricane season rolls through. You see how these things, it's clockwork. It's sick what goes on. Again, as crazy as all this sounds, this is the mad world we're living in. And check out this recent headline. Flint, a city that was targeted. Actually, hold on. Before I come to this, I got to get my camera back up here and talk about this. This hurricane with the Star of David. And yes, I do have a Band-Aid on my finger. Don't cut apples in your hand, especially when you're tired. But Comedy Central. Is that what you knew was going to come out of my mouth? Comedy Central? If you can access the roast of Bruce Willis through Comedy Central, I can't remember exactly where it is in the presentation, but if you watch it, you'll see that, if you've ever watched one of these roasts on Comedy Central, usually the majority of the panel is Jewish. It was no different with Bruce Willis. And they made a joke about how if you were any more Jewish, you would control the weather. And they all just die laughing hysterically like it's so funny. And they delivered it pretty much just the way I did, which wasn't that funny at all. So, I mean, what kind of joke is that? Why do all these Jewish people in Hollywood start just laughing like they've never heard anything funnier? About if you were any more Jewish, you would control the weather. And then what is going on with a book cover like this? And this arrives on the same day that I'm looking at this headline. I'm like, do we live in the Matrix? I've been talking about this stuff for years, and now I get like the best news story ever. And keep in mind, Donald Trump all the families his children are married into. Well, what's the commonality between all those families? Hint. But the book shows up, this news story on the same day, it blows my mind. And then up here you got Trump misses G7, G the seventh letter, right? G the seventh letter, the 7-7, Secret Society 77, Power 77, United States 77, DC on the American meridian, the 77th meridian. So, anyhow, here's what I want to talk about with the recent example of weather warfare. I'll get the camera to stay up here. So this is from this was in the headlines yesterday. 2 million gallons of sewage water spill out in water crisis plagued Flint, Michigan. The 2 million gallons of sewage came from unforeseen weather, flash flood. And this happened on Sunday, August 18th. We'll come back to that date, but I just want to start with the flash flooding piece. August 18th, 2019 was a date with 65 numerology. Flash flood event equals 65. You see, you get the flash flood event, which it's blamed on. The dumping occurred Sunday, August 18th due to a flash flood event that flooded primary settling tanks at Flint's wastewater treatment plant, which the news outlet reported was according to a partial report filed Tuesday by the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. So, what a day for a flash flood event. And with regards to it being sewage water, again, people, when they hear the word Illuminati, they get all giddy and silly, and they think it's like saying, unicorns or fairies, not realizing that the Illuminati is a real thing. They were established May 1st, 1776, just before the American Revolution. George Washington even wrote about it. He said Freemasonry might have been infiltrated by the Illuminati. And anyway, Bavarian Illuminati is 188. This happened on 18/8. Bavarian Illuminati is also 127, like sewage water. And I've talked about what's going on in Detroit for some time. The Obama ritual, the sipping the water thing, to this film, 3 the Hard Way. Notice this film, 3 the Hard Way equals 74. It's a film. Let me show you the film here. 3 the Hard Way came out in 1974. Came out June 26, 1974. The story involves a white supremacist plot to taint the United States water supply with a toxin that is harmless to whites but lethal to blacks. The only obstacle that stands in the way... ... Flint is a, very black city in terms of American demographics. This film came out in 1974, right? And it was called 3 the Hard Way, which equals 74. And notice Flint is 74. Think that's an accident? I guarantee you it is not. And there's a lot more to this that we've covered over the years, the Obama thing. But again, I'm just showing that Flint, what's happening in that city is not by accident. This is the work of an agenda. The government, people don't understand. Governments are here to control. Govern, control meant mind. Mind control, government. And governments use us, essentially as guinea pigs. Anyone who's not completely blind to what's going on in the skies knows that there's some sort of experimentation going on up there. And again, we live in a nation where our Congress actively works to pass legislation so we can't know what's in our food. We are being treated as guinea pigs. And some people get it worse than others, such as Flint, Michigan. And again, everything that's done in this world, this sick agenda, it is foretold in entertainment where people won't take it seriously. So, I would say the flash flood event on that date was likely not an accident. That's the point I'm trying to make. Oftentimes I do my videos just like this, and then I look at the comments the next day, and there's 8 people going, "I don't get your video." It's like, and to me, it's like, what don't you get? I'm showing you how things are being done by a code every single day. What I'm showing in this thing is what goes on every single day. Weather warfare, creating, things like a flash flood event on the most perfect day to screw over a group of people. This goes on every single year. And for the person, see, that's the thing about the subjects I cover, right? I have to talk about so many different things every single time to cover all the bases of what's going on here, because this is a massive agenda. You live in a nation, if you don't know, American person of the world, because this is the New World Order. You live in a world where governments are ruled by banks and they believe in something called disaster capitalism, which is where you destroy something so that the government has to go to the bank, its central bank, which isn't part of the nation, which is owned by private interests. If you were any more Jewish, you'd control the weather. Private interests that every time they loan these governments money to say, "Oh, here, fix your $1 billion in damage from that storm that just hit you. Yeah, here's a $1 billion loan." The reason they gladly give out that $1 billion loan is because they're guaranteed to make big profit, and it's just a giant Ponzi scheme. It's just a giant Ponzi scheme, and all the people of the world pay for it. And we'll get to the Amazon too tonight. People keep saying, "Zach, why don't you talk about the Amazon? Because it's too depressing." 20 years ago, I changed my diet because I read that the Amazon was disappearing at the rate of a football field a minute or something like that. Now they report a football field and a half per second. I don't know if that's possible, but or maybe it is. But anyway, I read a long time ago that the reason the Amazon was disappearing is because they were chopping it down to make room for cattle to graze so that they could be ground up for cheap beef for the world's overconsumption of hamburgers, which the U.S. has a lot to do with. And of course, the U.S. has helped spread the McDonald's, model and diet across the world, thanks to, powerful nations getting together with powerful corporations and spreading what they do. And I do know how to spell sewage. I have typos in my blog all the time. I gotta proofread, but anyway. There's that. Another thing I want to talk about, the market. Saw a headline tonight that is right in line with everything that I've been talking about. In September of 2018, I said, circle the date August 11th, watch Temple Mount. Something will go down there that day. Thought it might even be more catastrophic than what it was, but there was something very bad at Temple Mount. Muslim worshippers had tear gas shot on them on one of their most holy days at one of their most holy sites, something unprecedented. Anyway, I said that around this time, there should be a lot of global shakeup. They obviously have a planned collapse of the market coming, just like they did in 2008. They've done this all throughout history, just ways to push the people along, like push the cattle along on their agenda. Collapse markets, make people desperate. Next thing you know, you got plenty of people in the military for your next needless war, this type of thing. But in the headlines, Sunday night, unusual headline about how the Dow futures are sliding. Today, one of CNN's top stories, CEOs are selling stocks like it's 2007, a year before the collapse. And then this evening, you get a story that says a sell-off worse than December can arrive in a week. Who predicted Lehman-like drop. Now, that's in reference to the Lehman Brothers, which caused the last financial collapse in 2008, if I'm not mistaken. And notice how they emphasize Lehman-like in that headline. Lehman-like equals 45, like Wall Street, like Berlin Wall. Remember Donald Trump, the House of Cards president, the casino manager, Mr. Bailout. He was announced as the 45th president-elect on the anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall, November 9th, 2016, in the early hours of the day. His vice president, Mike Pence, equals 45 forwards and backwards. This news comes on the 26th of August. And notice Lehman's 26, like God, like dollar, like bank. Think about how on the dollar bill it says, "In God we trust." And the relationship between the God and dollar is faith. The dollar works because people have faith in it. There's nothing behind it. Just faith that if you work and get some of those green things, or now just some electronic things that show up in your bank account, which you use to pay off your credit card that's over maxed out if you're the average American, if you even have any green things anywhere in your possession, those green things, they're faith-based, just like God is faith-based. I'm not saying they're equal, I'm just saying that that's the parallel, and that's why, in part, In God We Trust is on the dollar bill, because they helped raise a society of believers and not so much thinkers or questioners or investigators. And you can thank, in large part, your authoritarian, public socialization system, which we go through K to 12, most of us. We call it education, but really it's more like burn you out on wanting to learn anything, make you hate reading, writing, math, make you hate everything, make you just want to graduate and get on with your life, which is most people's experience with school. So, what a great model, right? It's funny, when I was in elementary school, we were starting to read things like around fifth grade about how it would be better for students to get to sleep in more in the morning and come to school midday because their brains are functioning and they could. We were reading this like literally in our classroom, and I'm thinking, well, if they know this, then why are we getting here early in the morning? And then they do it to you all through like middle school and high school. I must have got that lesson 3 or 4 times along the way, or we'd read something and it's just like, well, then what are we doing here? Again, it's because it's all by design. They want the whole experience to be, torture. Anyway, Lehman Brothers, the name of that company, 68 like Donald John Trump like market. And from the day Trump took office to the date of this news, it's 135 weeks and 3 days. Wall Street's 135. So Central Intelligence Agency. CIA is also 68. Read the headlines about how people go back and forth from the CIA to Wall Street. How they just cross platforms, back and forth. Again, people don't understand that we live in a giant fascist nation. It's government and corporation that controls the whole show. How do you think there got to be 5 of each thing that just dominate the nation? Thing like Walmart that puts, entire businesses out of commission in small communities, and then next thing you know, the only place to shop is the Walmart. Walmart, where every store is paid for with taxpayer dollars. What is that? Company that pays no taxes, makes billions in profit, has the taxpayers build their properties. Madness. From Trump's birthday today, it's his 74th day of his age. Go figure. That big masonry number that just shows up everywhere. Masonic, George Washington holiday, Independence Day 74. What day is our Independence Day 74? Hello. So I wanted to go back and look at what day the Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy. It was September 15th, 2008. So we're coming up on the 11-year anniversary, right? September 15th can be written 15/9, like 159, Scottish Rite's 159, Donald Trump's 159. Again, Washington, D.C. is named after the Freemason, the Scottish Rite Freemason, George Washington. George Washington, 74, like Masonic. And so I looked at what day September 15th is this year. It's a Sunday, so Wall Street's closed on Sunday. There's some futures trading. But the Friday before that, market gets interesting on Friday, which I pointed out. We just saw a really bad market day, 135 weeks after Trump's birthday, or after the day Trump took office, excuse me. Last Friday, really bad day, 135 weeks, Wall Street 135, market collapses on 135 date numerology in the past. But anyway, from the day Trump took office to September 13th is 138 weeks. Remember, Donald Trump's 138, so was federal. The Berlin Wall construction started in history August 13th, 13/8, like 138. Been talking about these patterns with Trump and the planned collapse of the economy for a long time. And the one thing about September 13th is it's not quite the fall yet. Fall. That's when they usually make the market fall in the fall. Fall starts September 21st. So a week later would be 139 weeks. Freemasonry is 139. September 13th is 13/9. The point is, they have a planned event coming. This whole thing between Trump and the president of China, guys who have birthdays one day apart, New World Order puppets, this is all a show. What's really going on is the New World Order. It's not Donald Trump's Twitter account that controls the world, as the mainstream media would have you think. And when you really think about it, I mean, that explains what this nation is. Just something that treats its people like it's idiots, teaches them lies from a young age, from religion to Christopher Columbus, and then expects them to just believe lies and watch the news, which is essentially the fourth branch of government, the propaganda wing, and not question anything and just nod your head. Yes, Donald Trump's Twitter caused the market to tank several percentage points today. Yes, Donald Trump's Twitter, that makes sense. And do you guys realize how they've pretty much, got the whole world to think that everything now moves through Twitter? Oh, man. The idiocracy in motion. So Elizabeth Warren, we talked about this woman, the only woman who's going to be 71 years old when the election rolls around, and the most likely competitor for Trump because, they have this rivalry going back to from when he first announced, and him calling her Pocahontas. And what's funny is Elizabeth Warren just had her biggest rally in Seattle. Seattle is the only city in U.S. history to ever give land back to Native Americans. And if you've ever been to Seattle, that land is Discovery Park, part of it, where the Native Center is. So I think there's something to this with the whole Pocahontas angle. But Elizabeth Warren, Seattle's up on the 47th parallel, Elizabeth's 47. Remember, 47 is that number. President 47, White House 47, government 47, authority 47, Republican 47, Democrat 47, Trump 47, DC 47. Even the nickname Liz for Elizabeth is 47. Liz 47. L plus I plus Z. 12 plus 9 plus 26. 47. But up in Seattle on the 47th parallel. By the way, Elizabeth Warren sums to 77, like United States, like DC on the 77th meridian. But they said 15,000 people turned out. 47's the 15th prime. Seattle rally. Anyhow, the thing about Elizabeth Warren, do I have the right post here? Oh yeah, here we go. The thing about Elizabeth Warren being 71 years old at the time of the election in 2020 is that 71's the 20th prime number. And I pointed out that when the Democrats had their first debate with 20 candidates, from the day that happened, June 26th, 2019, to the election, November 3rd, 2020, is 71 weeks. The 20th prime. 71 weeks. 20th prime, 2020 election, 20 candidates. Also, June 26, 2019 was a date with 71 numerology. So they have the first debate on a date with 71 numerology, 71 weeks before the election. Again, the 20th prime number, 20 candidates. Elizabeth Warren will turn 71 June 22nd, 2020. So 4 months and some days before the election. And she's got the most magical numbers out of the contestants too, with that 77. United States equals 167 and 77. So there's that. Also in the headlines today, when they had the Elizabeth Warren story up CNN, they also had the story about a Michigan woman who wanted her city to be more white, and she dropped out of the election. And just realize this is just contrived propaganda. They said the woman was from Marysville, Michigan, which equals 4646. Story comes on a date with 46 numerology. They said the woman was 67 years old. That's a feminine number in Jewish Gematria. It's why International Women's Day is the 67th day of the year, March 8th. Female 67 in Jewish Gematria. This woman's name, Jean Kramer, also equals 88, like Trump, like the Republican Party. So you just got to see the symbolism in the stories and why they're coded out. You have Elizabeth Warren looking pumped in front of the big crowd. You got Donald Trump looking like a chump who lies about crowd sizes, and uses the crowd from a women's protest against him to say that was his turnout for the inauguration. Again, one of the stories that's, one of the great stories of the Trump presidency. But then you also got this story about the white racist woman who's on her way out. She's bowing out. And her name is Jean Kramer. Of course, the name Kramer should remind you of Seinfeld, right? And his racist tirade. I'm sure that's part of the subliminal programming. But her name, again, let me get her name up here. Where did it go? Jean Kramer. So I just want to show you this. Sometimes I get lazy and I don't actually cut out the things because it's just quicker for me to type it. But Jean Kramer with the alphabetic order 88, just like Trump, 88. And just like the Republican Party, 88. And Clinton, her name's 87. Look at the Democratic Party. Damn, I missed the R. Democratic Party, 87. Clinton, 87. Trump, Clinton. Perfect names to represent the two bought and paid for parties. Different rhetoric, same result. Now here's another good one. Missy Elliott tonight. She got an award at the MTV VMAs, and she wore this jacket, the Bleeding Gold 22, and on the pockets she had the number 17 and the number 54. She was being honored for her hip-hop career, which began in 1997, which was 22 years ago, the Master Builder number. She wears the number 22. Her name, Missy, in the most pure cipher, the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology, the one we've talked about for years, 22. 22 years getting this award. And here's her first album, Super Duper Fly. Or if you're my age, you remember that music video where she's like, it looks like she's almost in a plastic black garbage bag blown up with air. But anyway, July 15th, 97. And what's interesting is from the 22-year anniversary to today is the 43rd day since that anniversary, or 42 days after. Super Duper Flies 43. 42 days after, we know about 42 in Black History. Last year at the VMAs, Aretha Franklin, who had 42 studio albums, who died in Detroit on the 42nd parallel by the numbers on the day Elvis died. The Queen of Soul, the King, same day. A lot of deaths on that day because it's the 228th day of the year, and death equals 228. But anyway, 42, just this number stamped all over Black History. Known through Jackie Robinson, Jackie equals 42, February 42, the N-word's 42. Again, Detroit up in the 42nd parallel. Aretha last year remembered with her 42 albums. So, anyway, 42 days after. If you write out 42 as a word in the album Super Duper Fly, they're both 142 and 43. And the name Elliott's 42, by the way. Now, in light of the colors she's wearing, the gold and black with the 22, football season's getting underway, 22 men on the field, the Master Builder number. The other year at the MTV Movie Awards, Will Smith received a Lifetime Achievement Award. And the theme at I think they call them the VMAs, or maybe not. Whatever it is, the MTV Movie Awards. That year the theme was gold and black, like the Saints colors, just like this. And that same night, Will Smith, the actor, got the award. Will Smith, the NFL football player for the Saints, was supposedly shot to death. And remember, Will Smith equals 44, like shooting. Anyhow, Will Smith, the Saint, dies in New Orleans, and Will Smith gets the Lifetime Achievement Award. And he had just done a movie called Focus, which was about gambling in New Orleans and pro football. And if you've never seen that movie and you're into this study, you really should watch it, because there's this scene where he explains how he deceives people understanding numbers. So, And I believe the number he uses in the scene is 55. Numerology equals 55. But also, CNN did a story on the death of Will Smith at the time. And they, for no reason in the story with the audio going, for people who've been around, you guys remember this. For no reason, they focused on an alarm on a wall in the story about Will Smith's death and just kept the camera on it for no reason. But if you noticed, the word focus was right on the what they zoomed in on. Focus. And they just kept it there while they were talking about the death of Will Smith. And I was saying, you see what I'm saying? This movie Focus, Will Smith, New Orleans, gold and black theme. So anyway, it's just reminding me of this because it's another MTV thing. Football season's about to kick off. The Saints, we've been talking about a lot of deaths connected to the Saints in 54 in recent weeks. The 54th governor of Louisiana, Nancy Parker, 54. Barry Bennett, who just died, who played for the Saints, his name 54. Super Bowl 54 upcoming. Missy Elliott's jacket, I don't have it here, but her pockets had different numbers, 17 and 54. And just look at this. Football's 43 like Masonic. Again, it's a span of 43 days from the anniversary. She's honored for this album, which equals 43. The name Missy also equals 85, like National Football League's 85. Like Tidwell's 85, who wears the number 85, and Jerry Maguire. Again, just alphabetic order. Tidwell. Remember that movie? Rod Tidwell, Cuba Gooding Jr. But, let me see. Oh, the three numbers she was wearing. 17, 22, 54. Add them up. 17 plus 22 is 39. Plus 54 more is 93. Elliott with the alphabetic order 93. Again, if you're new here, there's 4 base ciphers. The most simple one is the alphabetic order. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. The next cipher is the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. So notice how this first cipher, E is 5, L is 12, L is 12, I is 9, O is 15, T is 20. Look what happens here. You see this one, where Elliott's 30, E's 5, but L instead of being 12 is the numerology at 12, 1 plus 2 is 3, I is 9, O instead of being 15 is 1 plus 5 is 6, T is 2, etc. So, alphabetic order, rules of numerology. Just making those double-digit letters single-digit. That's how 20 becomes 2. 2 plus 0 is 2. This cipher is the reverse alphabetic order. Z is 1 back to A is 26. And this last cipher is the reverse alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. And if you write out 22 as a word, it equals 42. See that? Freemason is 42. 22 is the master builder number. The Freemasons, once upon a time, the master builders, especially of spiritual architecture, where a lot of these numbers come from. Spirituality, religion. Now, again, the 54 on her pocket with the New Orleans color theme. New Orleans is 54. Drew Brees is 54. We've seen a lot of deaths in connection to New Orleans in 54, just in, the last 10 days. Missy Elliott also has the signature 74, go figure. In light of this coming the year after Aretha Franklin, Missy Elliott better look out. How old is she right now? She's born in 71. The numbers on her pocket, 17 plus 54, 71. So she's 48. She's 48 years old. Freemason, Illuminati, both 48. The day you read about Missy Elliott's passing, it will be coordinated with this event. Rest assured, because that's the way this sick world works. Again, last year Aretha dead, Missy Elliott dead. What's the connection between those two people? They're both black women. They're both thicker. They're both musicians. This is the way this stuff works year after year. You pay attention to what's going on. They're sick, demented rituals, and they're all done by this code. And every year you see sports championships come and go, rigged by the numbers. We're usually calling them from the start of the season these days. And you see the ritualistic passings. You see the ritualistic ceremonies. You see the people dying for the ceremonies. Are we going to read about a death tomorrow? Will there be a death in the next few days in the headlines? Maybe it even happened this day, but we hear about it 3 days from now. It's what we see, ceremony after ceremony. And yeah. So anyway, by the way, the Super Bowl this year is on 2/2, February 2nd, 2/2, like 22, 33rd day of the year. I think her award that she got was the 33rd edition of that award, if I heard right. But from the award to the Super Bowl is 5 months and 7 days. Remember, when you write out 57, it's championship like Super Bowl. And this news comes on Missy Elliott's 57th day of her age. And again, this award comes on a date with 46 and 73. Numerology sacrifices 46 and 73. So I'm sure, I mean, if you're in the world of entertainment for this long, you probably already had some sacrifices around you. And I don't know Missy Elliott's full story, but I'm sure if we comb through it, there'll be some suspicious stuff. It seems to be that way for almost everyone in show business that's there for multiple decades. And sadly, she's going to end up being one of them one day, too. So. By the way, we always talk about Serena in 26. Her birthday is September 26th. Today on August 26th, Serena adds to her legacy, defeating Maria Sharapova. You know, showing she can still do it after being a mom. And I know a part of the, you know, people are going to leave a comment and be like, she's not a mom, she's not a woman, she's a transgender. Look, again, everything's possible. The reason you don't see me calling everyone a transgender is because I don't have enough proof. And a woman's body looking a little bit more masculine, or even a lot more masculine than most women, that's not enough proof to me. You know, she could just be a freak of nature, and that's why she's the most, you know, physically dominant female tennis player there ever was. Until, you know, Zion Serena Williamson is born 10 years from now. Probably on Israel's birthday will be the day she joins, you know, professional tennis. For those of you who don't know Zion Williamson, he was the lottery sweepstakes on the anniversary of the Zionist Nation of Israel's establishment. Don't forget who runs the NBA. And again, read the book Eye to Eye and watch the Comedy Central roast of Bruce Willis where they say, "You're so Jewish," or "If you were any more Jewish, you would control the weather." Who pushes the media that demonizes people who look into conspiracy and teaches everyone to label them conspiracy theorists, when in reality it's more like they're conspiracy fact finders? And you don't even have to be that good of a researcher. You know, you just got to go look at the latest box in your mailbox, or book in your mailbox. It's late. Here's a good one. Did you see my work last week on Bryce Harper and the Philadelphia shooting? Because if not, you should really go back and watch in real time. As the Philadelphia news story broke of the shooting, was there even a shooting that really happened? The supposed shooting in Philadelphia, the shootout. As that news was breaking, the Philadelphia Phillies game was starting, and I pointed out how that day on Patreon, by the way, every day on Patreon we decode sports games, put out knowledge. You know, some people do really well with the knowledge. I'd say 3 out of 4 people have a lot of success with what I teach them with this knowledge. It's not for everyone, but about 3 out of 4 do great. And, you know, not to make this about gambling, but this knowledge does pay if you use it wisely. So anyway, last week on Patreon, before the shooting even happened, it was that date, and it had 61 numerology. This is what we do every day. We just talk about how the games are rigged by the numerology. It's this way every day. But anyway, we were saying how perfect. Philadelphia comes in with 61 wins today. Philadelphia 61, Bryce Harper 61. Bryce Harper's due to get hot. That day, you get a Philadelphia shooting, active shooter 61. Bryce Harper has one of his best games of the season. The Phillies win 11-1. The name of the shooter put out at the end of the game, his name equals 111. So anyway, that wasn't too long ago. Now I want to show you what happened tonight at the Phillies game on Jewish Heritage Night. Yes, it was Jewish Heritage Night at the Phillies game tonight. In Revelation, there's a letter written to the Church of Philadelphia about the synagogue of Satan, the false Jews. And here, you guys you got to see this. I mean, seeing is believing, right? Jewish Heritage Night. equals 101. You see that? Today was 303 days after the Tree of Life synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh. The Phillies played Pittsburgh. It was a Pennsylvania matchup. Tree of Life's 101. Pittsburgh's baseball team name is the Pirates. Pirates 101. The name Philadelphia is 101. The word church is 101. There's a letter written to the Church of Philadelphia. The word Christian is 101. The word Christianity is 65, like Philadelphia. And Philadelphia, one was 6-5 score tonight. Philadelphia is established October 27th, the day leaving 65 days left in the year. That's also the day of the Tree of Life shooting in Pittsburgh, October 27th, 2018. So anyway, you had Jewish Heritage Night. What a night for it. 101, the 26th prime number. It's the 26th of the month. If you've never read my book, the opening chapter is about 26 and 101. But check this out. First of all, they emphasize it's pretty cool to say I'm a dad now, which equals 118 like Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, like Philadelphia, PA. It's pretty cool to say I'm a dad now equals 152 like Pennsylvania as well. You had an all Pennsylvania series. Now, it was April 1st that Bryce Harper and his lady Kayla announced they were having a child. And they wrote, Wrigley's going to be pissed. Baby Harper making his debut August 2019. So I'm sure there's a riddle in that I need to think about. But from April 1st, April Fool's Day, to this announcement of the child, which came today, August 26th, this is the news today. The child was supposedly born on the 22nd, the master builder number. We'll come back to that. But the news was today of the child's birth. So check this out. The baby's name is Crew Harper, spelled with a K, which equals 147 and 57, like World Series. Jewish heritage is 147. Jacob, who becomes Israel, dies at age 147 in the 47th chapter of Genesis. If you write out 47th, it equals 147. Now look at this. From April 1st, the news that he's having a baby, to August 26th, the name of the birth, or the news of the birth and the name, 147 days later. And tonight the Phillies win on Jewish Heritage Night. And today happens to be 57 days from the start of the World Series. The name Crew alone's 57. And again, World Series is 57. And we just talked about this with the shooting. Here's the score tonight. Phillies 6-5. Philadelphia and Bryce Harper both equal 65 and 61. You had the shooting on the 61 date. Today you get the 65 ritual, the return of Bryce Harper, who's been gone on paternity leave. He comes back today, the day of the news story. They're playing Pittsburgh, Jewish Heritage Night, the synagogue shooting. 303 days later, you get this game. Remember, the Phillies just participated in a weird ritual in San Francisco the night they honored the World Series Earthquake team. San Francisco's the 118 city. They did that on August 11th, 11/8, a year to the day of retiring Barry Bonds' jersey, who also played for the Pirates and Giants. Barry Bonds, 118. Anyway, I know I'm going fast, but that's what Rewind is for. So, it's late, and I needed to go to bed a long time ago. I was up working till 3-something in the morning yesterday. And had to get up early. Been working since 7 this morning, maybe earlier. And I really just wanted to chill out and go to bed tonight. But man, so much stuff happened in the world. I just had to get the information out there. So anyway, there's a few more things to get through. The Amazon. These fires in the Amazon. Now I see some suspicious reporting. The Amazon is burning. There have been more than 74,000 fires. I remember last summer the Masonic fires. Remember Masonic 74? I don't know what to think or believe anymore about the destruction of the environment. I know it's bad, but I don't know how much stuff's overstated just to create feelings of negativity and terror and fear. There's a lot of trees in the world, you know. It's not good to destroy trees. There are forest fires every year. People survive. I know that this type of news really changed my life in the late 90s as a teenager when I began to read about food and diet. And one of the facts I read back then was that the Amazon was being logged and cut down to make fields to just have grass and feed cattle for meat production, and it was being done at a rate of it was one football field every minute, which just seems so extreme to me. I just couldn't picture that. A whole football field of trees being cleared every minute. And if you read the headlines that are coming out the latest, they're saying that Amazon's being destroyed right now at a rate of 1.5 football fields, so it's increased, it's 1.5 per second instead of per minute. And I'm just thinking, and the whole time this has been going on since the 90s, I've continued to read the same stats. Usually it's usually reported that the Amazon's disappearing at a rate of 1 football field per minute. And if you really think about that, I mean, that stat's been reported since at least the late 90s when I first read about it up to the present. It seems like if that were true, the whole forest should be gone by now. I mean, that's per minute. I mean, I know the Amazon's huge, but that's a massive rate of destruction too. So, again, you know not to believe everything that you read in the media, but at the same time, it's like we do need to recognize what we're doing to the environment with all of our consumption. A lot of the earth is destroyed for needless consumption. Just close your eyes and think about this for a moment. All the floating Ben & Jerry's somewhere in the ocean. There's garbage islands. Ice cream, it's delicious, but it's not healthy. It ultimately makes most people fat after they're not children anymore. A lot of you who are overweight and trying to lose weight, stop eating ice cream. See what happens. Stop eating sugar and junk food. See what happens. Might surprise yourself. Might be like, oh man, I don't even need to go to the gym. I just have to start eating all this ice cream and sugar. But yeah, I don't feel like doing like a big decode on the Amazon fire. I noticed CNN had it as the front page story on a date with 68 numerology. Brazil equals 68. But I do know things are bad. And I know it's possible, it's very possible and likely that, maybe the Amazon is burning needlessly right now, just like how Paradise, California and Los Angeles, California burned needlessly last year. If you weren't here, November 8th, 118, a number associated with death. Los Angeles, California, 118. Paradise, California, 118. Both of those locations burned on November 8th, 118, this number associated with death. And not by accident. There's so many agendas that can come out of this. Terrify people, maybe clear land for some other purpose. Maybe they know there's some resource there they want to get to. That could be what's going on. We refuse to change our ways. Maybe there's a lot of oil in certain spots. It's way easier to access if you just burn out the forest. Doesn't that make sense? I mean, forest can be hard to get through. Just burn it all down. Set the oil pump up tomorrow. Can lay from the grave. So, this is why people have to wake up to what's going on in the world. It's a fascist world. It's government. It's corporation. It's about profit over everything else. It's about the rich shareholders. They just want to see more and more pennies in their bank account. They don't care about anything else. All they care about is power and greed, and everything else is secondary. Or if you go to business school, you'll learn the term externality. An externality, some unintended or maybe completely intended consequence that doesn't affect the economic bottom line. So, burning down the forest to increase my bankroll so I can set up my oil pumps? No problem. No problem. I live in the, where do I live? I live in Sweden. I'm just making economic decisions down in Brazil because that's the kind of world we live in. It's the New World Order world. They got Trump South down there, right? So they got 2 candidates in 2 major nations and the 2 American continents that don't care about the environment, that are just like, endangered species, please. Let's just fish the last of them away and get the profits while we can. before somebody else comes along and snatches up those fish. That's the kind of thinking going on right now in our government. You know, that's what people don't realize. I mean, 20 years ago, all of these things that, should we go and drill in all these untapped areas to get all this oil? 20 years ago we were saying, no, let's not do it because we're going to destroy ecosystems. Untouched ecosystems, there's not many of those left in the world anymore. Well, all that's done and over with. We're drilling all those places now. We're drilling everywhere. And somehow we have, that's the other thing that Americans don't get. They think their nation's so great. So we're now supplying more oil to parts of the world than Saudi Arabia. Well, you know what's different? If you go to Saudi Arabia, their people are paying literally 30 cents a gallon for gas, literally 30 cents. How much are we paying here? About 10 times that? If you're on the West Coast, you might even be paying more than that. So, think about it. All this nation does is just abuse everybody. If there's all this oil now and they destroyed the environment to get all this oil, why hasn't the cost lowered for the people? Again, because it's all about profit. It's all about profit just to a certain group of people. So what's going on for that certain group of people is now because they're destroying the environment, they get even more oil. It's easier for them. It's closer to them. It's cheaper, and they're still charging the excess prices to make buku profit. Because again, we have this system that's based on continual profits. Every quarter, every year, more and more profits. We just got to come up with more and more profits. We got to figure out more and more ways to make money. And it's like, in reality, what's going on in the world is we have all the technology and know-how to revolutionize the world, have clean energy, make it so, people can have clean energy, clean food close to them, make it so we can enjoy life. We have all this artificial intelligence and robots. I mean, we really could create a society where things were automated and there was an abundance and people didn't have to worry about being out of work and not being able to feed themselves, but could have time to, dedicate their energy to doing other things, such as growing food or maybe cleaning up the environment or spending time with their family and kids or teaching, their young ones their talent, how to play an instrument or, paint or draw. So, I mean, the world could be completely different. But we live in a world where 10 people literally have as much wealth and, they have a lot more power and control. 10 people literally have as much wealth as hundreds of millions. That's the kind of world we live in with the wealth disparity. You got the whole world shopping at one guy's giant grocery, clothing, pharmacy, everything store. You know what I'm saying? Walmart type store. So, somebody asked if I could look into the story of these missing firefighters outside of Jacksonville. They said something seems funny about this story, the way it's being pushed. Oftentimes if it's in the news, there is something suspicious going on. One guy's name's McClooney, 37. The other guy's name's Walker, 33. I just saw all sorts of very repetitive Masonic numbers in this story. By the way, Jacksonville equals 43 like Florida. Remember when the election of the 43rd president came down to Florida? George W. Bush, where his brother was the governor, Jeb Bush. His dad was the 43rd vice president before becoming the president. Jeb Bush was the 43rd governor of Florida. And Bush himself, or Shrub II, George W., became the 43rd president. And of course, Yale equals 43, the home of Skull and Bones that identifies by 322. So, yeah. Anyway. I think those were all the points I wanted to hit. Again, you really should read my book. Read the chapter on weather warfare. See what's been going on and admitted for decades. The UK was the first nation to admit back in 1952 that they had done a military experiment to induce flash flooding, and it went beyond where they wanted it to, and it caused the loss of 30-some people's lives in a small town in the rural UK. So go back and look that up, 1952 weather warfare incident. Royal Air Force admitted to it. I believe they called it Operation Witch Doctor. And then the U.S. admitted the same thing during Vietnam, that they were flooding out the Vietnamese troops by spraying the skies with chemicals. So, weather warfare. It's been going on. Even before both of those things, the U.S. was already underway with its atomic and nuclear weapons testing program, blowing up bombs high up in the atmosphere and blowing them up on the surface, beneath the ground, everywhere they could. It's about world domination. It's about technology and who knows how to use it. It's, I guess, controlled by any means. Weather warfare, collapsing economies, starting needless wars, scaring people every single day with propaganda, entertaining them with, people like Missy Elliott. Looks like my camera froze again. What else is new? So, I covered it all, Truth Seeker. I'm going to wrap it up. Appreciate all the late night operators. So, thanks, Gematria, for saying to hit the like button. Appreciate it. All right, Truth Seeker. Have a good night. Till next time.